actually get to see the wrong hero after he has been hiding from you for several weeks because he could not get the camera to properly work. Hi, how are y'all? Yeah, I guess I'm in the picture. I can't really tell. I've taken too close of a shoot here to really be able to tell, but anyway, golly, I guess we still have some ground to cover here, and we shall do so. You know, I missed my calling. The ability to speak 2 hours at a stretch generally more properly belongs to a university instructor. Well, I wouldn't blame you if your attention were to occasionally lapse because of the unvarying, monotonous tone of my ponderous voice, because mine certainly lapses, even when the lecturer is the most challenging and scintillating of all the pedagogues with whom I have had an encounter. Yes, occasionally I just can't keep my mind on the track. Clint Eastwood said, "Reagan was a lucky guy. Clinton is too. They're alike in that way. Things come along that look like they're going to tag them, but they manage to bob and weave like Muhammad Ali. It's a combination of skill and luck," says Clint Eastwood. "I haven't changed my mind in 30 years, says Jesse Helms. Well, okay. 30 years is about the, I don't know, 30 years is a watershed. I mean, this is 1997, 30 years ago, 1967. I mean, everything changed in 1967. I mean, people say this about virtually any year, which marks a certain epoch in their own lives, but there is something of a chasm between 1966 and 1967, although some would place this chasm in 1963. That could well be. Some would place it in 1959. You know, it's up to you how you want to make this line of demarcation work, and others, more geopolitically astute perhaps, would say 1973. I guess it depends on what kind of phenomena you are attempting to demarcate as before and after. Like the United States' supreme hegemony among world powers, that line was 1973. The line between straight culture and the counterculture, that line was broached in 1967. The line between the era of innocence and reverence for our political leaders and the current era of cynicism, well, there were two such lines. One was drawn at 1963 and the other, of course, as we well know, 1974. In the wake of Watergate. Of course, it seems like every 10 years or so, every 11 or 12 years at least, we have such a line, because yet another such line occurred in 1986 with the Iran-Contra scandals. And, of course, as we well know, Bill Clinton's administration has been riddled with trumped-up scandals that his right-wing opponents, the radical right, and other assorted foes of Clinton's rather mild centrist liberalism are attempting to use to put the kibosh on and quash his quasi-progressive reforms. Gore Vidal once was threatened by Bill Buckley with a punch in the nose if he kept referring to him as a crypto-Nazi. Just a little bit of whimsy. As Elizabeth Kay says, virtue, once settled upon, need not waver. And she quotes a bumper sticker she saw. Clinton doesn't inhale, he sucks. Pretty clever. It's like Dracula sucks. Jesse Helms, speaking of Dracula, the giddy look of a leprechaun on steroids. Okay, I don't like this pose. It doesn't flatter me. It makes my chin look fat. What would Versace say? I'm not going to be one of his buff underwear boys, I can tell you that. So, you like musicals? You like musicals? You like musicals? Do you like musicals, I ask? Everybody's bound to like them, Helms enthuses. This is an excerpt of a lengthy article about Jesse Helms from, I guess it was George Magazine of March 1997. See, this is the humanizing touch. Right after calling him a leprechaun on steroids, we then proceed to humanize him by mentioning that he enjoys listening to musicals. Typical taste of a pre-1967 person so set in their ways that the line of demarcation took place 30 years ago, as opposed, say, to the young boomers whose line of demarcation was probably firmed up in about 1973-74. And, of course, the Generation Xers who probably had the Iran-Contra scandals to look back upon as a benchmark golden age era which had been broached. So, yeah, it's funny how each generation seems to open with a series of assassinations. I don't know, kind of uncanny. Well, there was the attempted assassination of Harry S. Truman in 1946 by the Puerto Rican nationalist group. And then there was, of course, the tragic assassination of John F. Kennedy and the character assassination of Richard Nixon all through the 50s, we might add. And then, of course, 68 was the Annus Horribilis, where we saw Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy get shot. And then George Wallace got it in 1972. And then, of course, Reagan and the Pope, both in 1980, as well as John Lennon. And things have been pretty quiet. Now Versace and O.J. Simpson's former wife, I don't know, we seem to be getting a little less elevated here. I mean, Versace, it's to die, but O.J. Simpson's wife, who nobody had ever heard of, except in the National Enquirer. See, the National Enquirer world is a whole counter world of things that are inconsequential to most people, except for National Enquirer readers who dote on the antics of Matt LaBash. I mean, 20 years ago it was Don Knotts, presumably, or someone like that, whose antics, second string type, second banana sidekick type antics. Anyway, Jesse Helms, one of his favorite expressions is "suck egg mule dog." There is nothing so near to eternal life as a temporary federal agency, says the witty Mr. Helms. The middle and lower class people who support him tend to feel overlooked and slighted. He addresses those smoldering emotions without being patronizing. Gee, speaking of frustrated middle and lower class people, I just saw The Bad Seed last night. Dun, 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 dun. Remember that? And there was a woman in it, Hortense Daigle. I don't remember the name of the actress who played her, but her husband was portrayed by none other than Sam Drucker of Petticoat Junction, although he looked exactly the same as he looked when he was playing the role of Sam Drucker in Petticoat Junction a good 20 years later. And they called out the major actors for a curtain call, but Sam Drucker, whoever he was portrayed by, didn't get a curtain call. However, his wife Hortense, who had at least 2 major scenes in the screenplay, did get called out for a curtain call. And wasn't it cute? They had the curtain call at the end, and the mother and the mother of the bad seed and the bad seed herself came out to take their vows, and The mother gave her a good spanking. And the little girl didn't really do all that much. I mean, she killed an old lady, and let's see, what else did she do? Oh, she murdered a little boy for his penmanship medal. She set fire to the cretinous janitor for teasing her too much. And let's see, what else? Oh yeah, she was plotting to kill her upstairs neighbor so she could get her lovebird. Wow. I mean, the thing is, the screenplay was so transparent because nothing happened that didn't have some sort of repercussion later on in the screenplay. And presumably the screenplay was closely modeled on the successful Broadway play. But it was so mechanical and contrived. It was filled with, of course, it was genuinely stirring and filled with emotion and had a lot of great set pieces within it. But when the name of the mass murderess, who the bad seed is the granddaughter of, was mentioned in Act 1, you just knew that the startling revelation in Act 4 was going to occur. Like the loaded gun in Act 1 that goes off in Act 3. So, anyway, geez, what was I getting at with this? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, they tastefully did not show the janitor being burned to death alive. This was, after all, 1946. There were standards of depravity which could not be broached in that more innocent era. Prior to that, I had seen another film from about the same time frame, Notorious, an Alfred Hitchcock film. His use of the leitmotif was far more subtle, and the only time you visibly noticed it was perhaps on one occasion when there was a long shot of a door closing, and you wondered, geez, now why is that door, why is he holding that shot on the closing door? And then, at the very end of the film, you find out. God, this is a very useful book, the movies on TV. And of course, on the way to look up Notorious, I find that there were actually two Munster movies. Of course, we all know about Munster Go Home. Some of us may actually have seen it. And the second one was called The Munster's Revenge, which has Sid Caesar in it, as well, of course, as Fred Gwynne, Yvonne DiCarlo, and Al Lewis. Duplicate robots of Herman and Grandpa Munster are implicated in a big art theft. Geez, I don't think a career in thievery would be the most viable option for a guy who looks like Frankenstein and Grandpa who looks like Dracula. So, see, I mean, you can get lost in this book. It's like surfing the net, Oh God, you devil, which was the sequel to Oh God and Oh God Book 2. And of course, Oh Heavenly Dog. Chevy Chase is reincarnated as a dog in order to solve his own murder. He should have been reincarnated as an appealing actor, but that would take us into the realm of wishful biography. Okay, I'm glad you got that little stab in. See, what I'm really looking for is, well, I know that Notorious came out in 1946, so, and it gives a better description than the TV section does. I don't know quite why they called it Notorious. Brooding romantic spy thriller, dark and complex, 4 stars. She's forced into marriage with the very enemy they're pursuing. one of the first of his great films. When you say, and you know what? I remember now. I saw this movie in college. Now, a lot of movies that I've seen in college, I only remember the last 30 minutes because that's when the pot wore off, you know? Now, and I just realized this now. I said, why can't I remember the first hour of this movie? And now I realize why. Because I got good and spleefed up and it only started wearing off in the last half hour, which I remember very distinctly. Either that or there was another reason. But The Bad Seed I also saw when I was a youngster. My cousin Bobby got a great deal of amusement out of the role of Leroy, the cretinous but sly janitor, who in one scene is shown bedding down on some Excelsior, and it looked like he was like getting ready to masturbate or something. But surely that's just me reading into it. They wouldn't even hint at such a thing. What I'm trying to confirm is when The Bad Seed was made into a film. And it was 1956, not 1946. Let's see, there was a movie called Bad Ronald. A young boy living in a secret room in an old Victorian house and slowly going mad. 1978. Of course, you know that well, that there was another remake. There was a remake of The Bad Seed with Macaulay Culkin, his second to last film, as far as I know. What was it called? The Good Cousin or something like that? The Good Brother? The Good Son? That's what it was called. I think that this thing is rather out of date. 1992-93. I don't think The Good Son made it. I don't think Poison Ivy's in here either. Two excruciatingly bad B movies. Although Poison Ivy had a couple of nice scenes in it. It's like a poem with like one good line out of 30. That's all you ask for, really. Everything else is just filling. Nobody expects you to produce something that's great in every single aspect anymore. You know, people actually applaud a piece of hack work like Star Wars as being a masterpiece. All it is like, you know, something that hits the sweet spot every now and then. But people seem to think that, you know, that constitutes greatness. No, The Good Son is not in here, but that's the name of it. And The Bad Seed came out in 1956. The macabre stage hit is faithfully brought to the screen, chills intact, except for a trumped-up Hollywood ending. Nancy Kelly goes through a series of hysterical scenes as the mother of a 6-year-old murderess, excellently portrayed by Patty McCormack. Actually, she was an 8-year-old murderess, but who's gonna quarrel? And what's this? A movie I wanted to rent, but never got around to. Let's see, what's this? The Bad Seed, remake of the 50s movie based on the hit play. It was a remake. I guess every 10 or 12 or 20 years or so. Remake of the 50s movie based on the hit play. This one has watered down the terror of a young child who turns out to be a cold-blooded killer when things don't go her way. Carrie Wells, Blair Brown, David Carradine, Lynn Redgrave, David Ogden Stiers. I never heard of that remake. I guess I wasn't exactly in the loop when the remake came out. You know, the whole era, everything from like 1976 to 1988 or thereabouts is a big blur to me. I mean, there were some brief moments of lucidity in the mid-80s, but I didn't really watch much television or anything like that, so, excuse me, I'm not really in tune to all of the cutting-edge demographic trends. Oh, back to Jesse Helms. Jesse Helms was a man everybody knows. He robbed the Glendale train. Okay, nobody can love you more, he told supporters on election night, or admire you more than I do. Well, that's a good way to get in good with your voters. Oh, yeah, I know it launched this incredibly long digression. There was a character in the Bad Seed named Hortense Daigle, who epitomized the lower class, as she repeatedly kept on announcing, I don't know, I'm not as classy as you. You have nice clothes, you're wearing well. Simple clothes, I couldn't get away with wearing that, blah, 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 blah. Hortense, it sounds like you're fat, and so forth. Like, much was made of name fatality here. So, in any event, Hortense offered to give the mother of the child murderess a beauty treatment free of charge. And, wow, she was pretty intense. But it's nice to know that, there is a role for the lower middle class or the upper lower class. Hello? Yes. Oh, God. Well, I don't suppose today would be a particularly good time to come in. 12:15? Oh, okay. 1 o'clock? All right, will do. And I'll bring the forms. Thank you very much, Doctor. See you. Well, I just made a doctor's appointment. So, oh God, 1 o'clock. I'm really running out of time here. I hope you appreciate all the effort that goes into bringing these presentations to your door. So let's see. Adlai Stevenson declared that he knew on whom the mantle of power would descend. It will be, he said, the last survivor. Jesse Helms is a true believer who never tumbled into the lesser man's trap of being cautious. The more things change, the more they remain the same, as the notable Alphonse Karr has been quoted as saying. His, that is Jesse Helms's, is a record that underscores the essential contradiction of modern conservatives. Opposed to totalitarian government, they incline towards authoritarian ones. Opposed to government interference in citizens' lives, they seek to eliminate it except where government interference can advance their cause. Jesse tends to demonize. He always needs a demon to run against. Demonizers tend to be demonized. His defenders suggest the futility of the vigorous denial, a McCarthyesque process whereby the refuting of something becomes its own kind of admission. I'll repeat that. That's very significant. Demonizers tend to be demonized. His defenders suggest the futility of the vigorous denial, a McCarthyesque process whereby the refuting of something becomes its own kind of admission. He has the best and worst attributes of a small town. The best is friendliness and manners and politeness. The worst is narrow-mindedness and not accepting anyone who is different. So, having said that, I suppose it won't be long now. Cheapers. I have to go and get a shot. I don't want to go and get a shot. Not only that, but now I have the wrong notebook here. So, you just can't win. Well, I might as well try to finish this up at least before before I have to run and do my multifarious errands. Geez, you know, if I don't get this done, the camera's going to blink out. As far as I know, it's still operating correctly. But if I try to pause it and then come back to it, you know, it might lose the light, and that would be a thing called sad. Not only that, but I can't seem to get an accurate record of how much time is remaining. It says here 8 minutes, but that doesn't seem right. Oh yeah, I guess it is 8 minutes. Good. Well, I'll wrap this up then, and that'll be good. I'll be glad to have gotten rid of this notebook because it's falling apart, and I won't even start a new one. Yes, now people want to write the great American screenplay. My Dinner with Andre, indeed. What kind of name is Andre, anyway? So, this isn't good. I ought to have some sort of thing where I can, like, read it without being seen to be reading it. Because, like, talking like this, you know, it just sort of gives your voice a different tone. And, that's not good. Well, I got quite a day ahead of me. Oh God, I got to call down at URI and see if I can't get them to answer my questions here. Let's see. Well, at least I'll get the shot out of the way and I can send it along to the folks down at, oh God, I don't have enough money to write a check for this goddamn shot. And they're going to probably keep me waiting for like 20 minutes. By the time I get back, it'll be like 1:30. I gotta take a shower before I go see the doctor. And, no, time is at a premium. I don't seem to have really given very good notations here. Prosecutors can't preemptorily strike jurors on the basis of race or gender. But now that prosecutors and judges have less discretion to exclude citizens who are irrational, eccentric, or simply angry, more jurors, for whatever reason, are refusing to listen or to persuade. I don't want to be here. This is a waste of my time. I've got other things to do. I'm on the front line and you're off having a cute life with your degrees and your money. Deliberating with an irrational juror may require patience and diplomatic skills such as few ordinary citizens possess. These people frequently simply lie, says Holder. They get on juries and essentially sabotage the system. Remember Superman, the bizarro world, and the regular world? We've got to the point now where the police dust guns in situations where it doesn't make sense to dust, because one juror out of 12 will say, well, maybe it wasn't his gun. So, I mean, this is an article that appeared in, geez, it doesn't give the citation. How can I continually neglect to give this citation? Oh, it was in the New Yorker from February 24th. So, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. We don't really expect the president to lead a crusade for justice, make hard choices, comfort the weak, or challenge the strong, according to the Nation of March 3rd. I always know if a Jew got the Republican nomination, he'd be an Episcopalian. Harry Golden on Goldwater, cited by Christopher Hitchens. Maybe he was talking about Kissinger, I don't know. The theory that Clinton was secretly one of us in disguise who would burst from the electoral phone booth as liberal man once he no longer needed to please every voter in the land. Oh, well, that's never going to happen. He'd cut off his mother's head and take bets on which way it would fall, says Gene McCarthy on an opportunistic senator. Polling, modernity's gift to politicians without principles. Sometimes he is spinning so fast he can't keep track of his arguments. This has been said of Dick Morris. The hypocrisy of these two philanderers as they cooked up their preaching is so cynical it makes your skin crawl. This is, of course, referring to Bill Clinton and Dick Morris. Lee Atwater's trysts paid for with on Republican National Committee credit card that earned points towards free airline tickets. RNC staffers called these frequent fucker miles. Lee Atwater on Dukakis. He would strip the bark off the little bastard and make Willie Horton his running mate. Please note that Lee Atwater's opinions are in no sense the opinions of myself. DARE, the anti-drug program, is the world's biggest pet rock. If it makes us feel good to spend the money on nothing, that's okay, but everyone should know DARE does nothing. Okay, fair enough. Focus, momentum, creativity, message, economic credit, unity, leadership, competence, compelling story, organization. That is the campaign strategy scorecard that campaigners must keep in mind, cited by the New Statesman and Society in February 7th. Bill Clinton. He's lost the knack of lying with conviction, says Alexander Cockburn in the same issue of New Statesman. Starobin makes the foolish assumption that our craft isn't about sensationalism, about entertainment, about dressing up an often mundane reality in a form appetizing to the customers. Journalism is 90% theatrics and 10% useful information. So, just so you know, I mean, that's... Think of a place that's bitterly anti-government and fiercely individualistic, where race is a constant subtext to daily life, and God and guns run through public discourse like an electric current. Think of a place where the death penalty and longer prison sentences are politically unstoppable. Think of a place obsessed with states' rights, passionately suspicious of Washington, where a certain religious fervor increasingly invests big sports and the military are given respect. Once you would have been thinking about the South. Now you are thinking about the United States, says Peter Applebaum in The Economist from February 15th. Thomas Jefferson, according to the New Leader of December 16, 1996. His quotability was his passport to immortality. Now, there's a good title for a presentation. Passport to Immortality. I'll have to jot that down somewhere. Duplicity was a notable element in the character of the American Sphinx, Thomas Jefferson. The only crime in the political arena is stupidity, not cupidity, says Henry F. Graff. Although styles and heroes and heroines change constantly, our world is built by the political leaders we place at the helm or allow to take the helm. Those who are eligible to dwell in Valhalla may be there on a very short lease. Still, removing old heroes and heroines before replacing them with new ones may not be good for the health of society. After all, few of us would choose to be rendered raceless, to be suddenly without a tribe. And those are words to remember. Next time we start in the feeling sorry for ourselves because we are the wrong race, or think we are. Folks, I want to thank you. In the grand old tradition of Broadway tumblers, for tuning in to Cafe Cabaret. Tune in next week for The Wrong Hero, as yet another presentation of this ongoing political series is, in fact, recorded. And so, now...